Welcome back to Odd Socks. I have been so busy this week. I've got several projects on the go, but there's certain things that I'm a little bit behind on, and that is my compost making. We have 3 bays here that we've been working on through the year, plus another 2 bays at the top, plus 3 bays or so around the plot that is absolutely chock-a-block full of wood chip with a lot of leaf mulch in there. That will be left for the next year or two and see how that one goes. But at the moment, I'm busy filling up this last bay here. Through the year, we filled up this one multiple times and turned it into the next one, and then finally into the 3rd bay. Now this one was restarted again about a month, 2 months ago, I think it was, after the rest of it had been turned into the middle. And it's time for me to start clearing all my beds that I've got here on our allotment. Now we have a lot of stuff to put on our compost pile, some of it being these tomatoes. Now these tomatoes have got blight. Unfortunately, we weren't able to avoid it. Some of the plants did better than others. Most of them were blight resistant that we had outside. But it still happens. Now I'm going to compost all of these. Now I don't want to compost my tomatoes in a compost bin that doesn't get hot. If you've seen previous videos, you would have seen that one bay that I used from the top half, which is a smaller compost bay than what these are, didn't get hot enough. And my compost was absolutely full of little tomatoes, which, to be honest, we did let grow because we had no plans for that bed this year. But it actually has helped us at this time of year when we want to get the last of the compost bays full with all the extra greens. And to be honest, some of these stems would be classed as brown, but all of it is going in. Now I have a large amount to go into this bin, and it's one of those jobs I've actually been putting off for quite a while. It's quite time consuming and I have got an awful lot to do. I have got to strip all my cabbage leaves. They can go into this. I have got other areas. I've got things I've allowed to bolt, which I've already collected the seed from. They need to go in. And I have an awful lot of chopped rape and chopped, I think it's straw and hay that will be going into this bin. That's from the chicken coop. Now this is full of chicken manure as well. And I've got quite a lot of this ready to go in. Now one of the good things about keeping the chickens is because you can get so much from them. Even their bedding is great to go in the compost depending on what you use. But this stuff is so finely chopped up, it really does break down quite quick, and it's a great source of brown for your compost bins. Now when it comes to chopping up, normally I would chop up all these tomato stems, but I have got a lot to go in, and that was just a very, very small portion of tomatoes I have got to go in here. I've got to clear the polytunnel. I have got 2-3 beds of tomatoes outside. All of it needs to come into the polytunnel. So again, it's one of those jobs I will get round to doing. We've had a couple of days of actually half decent weather, but it means I was able to get on with some of the jobs I needed to get in while it was dry and not so windy. That's going to change over the weekend, and I think next week it's going to be quite bad weather. So I'm against time a little bit for certain jobs. But one of the jobs I am going to tackle today is my monsters. Now this is one of my monsters. This is one of the Pacific giants that I grew this year. Now, I didn't grow this for any show, didn't grow it for anything other than a little test to see how big I could get it. Now, I didn't overly feed it, I didn't overly do anything, I planted and left it to it. But I've got to admit, this is a big boy. Now all I have to do is move it, and unfortunately I'm on my own at the moment, and I've got to get this up off the floor. So this will be an interesting test. Now this bad boy unfortunately has got a bit of damage. It's very soft and squishy, so I'm going to have to be really careful how I pick this up. Now apparently these are eaters as well, but to be honest, with all the other squashes I've got at the moment, I don't think I need this much pumpkin. So I'm going to come up with a way of doing something with this pumpkin, but it's not a bad size. And it's given me some ideas for next year of growing some even bigger pumpkins. Now I want to take this in now because it is getting damaged, and all it's going to do is rot even more. Oh my goodness me. But wow, it is big. But I'm going to show you the other side that's been in contact with the floor. As you can see, it's got an awful lot of bug holes in this, and 1 or 2 slugs that are hiding in those holes. Now, I can also see some holes through the top stem too, which again may cause some issues. Now, I've got 2 on the larger side, and I don't think I can actually carry this one on my own. It's not so much the weight, even though it is quite heavy, it's the actual shape of it. So I'm going to try a different way. Now, I'm not going to lie, that was incredibly heavy, and I really, really wish I had some scales, because this is a lot heavier than it actually looks. Now, I'm probably going to cut this one up and actually give some to the chickens. The chickens really, really enjoy pumpkin. But for now, I'm going to put it somewhere a bit drier. And I think maybe the polytunnel is the way to go. Now I've got to get this out. Should have really thought of this. There we go. Now this can stay in here a little bit. It's got damage on anyway, and like I said, it really isn't for eating. And I'm not too worried about the slugs that are on it. I've got to clear this polytunnel anyway. All my melons are pretty much died back. My gherkins have left a little bit too long, and that all needs to be cleared and removed anyway. I've got things to put in this polytunnel. My chilli plants are still holding on, and I'm still getting a half decent crop. But let's go and get this other squash to see the size difference between the two. Now there is an awful lot of green left on these leaves, which is great for that compost bin. Now this one is not as big as the other one, but it is a really nice shape. Now again, these were just left to their own device. We did pop a little cushion underneath this, but it actually doesn't look too bad. Again, I'm really not interested in eating them because I have so many other squashes. But it's a really nice shape. And I think I can use this for Halloween if I can keep it from rotting for the next, is it 3 to 4 weeks before Halloween? So we'll give it a go and see what happens. Let's see if I can lift this one. If I can lift that much bigger one, I'm sure I can do this one. It really doesn't help that it is very wet. Oh, yeah, that certainly wasn't as heavy as the previous one. But it really has given me some really good ideas for next year. I think I really want to have a go at growing 1 or 2 giant pumpkins. I'm not going to be able to compete with the bad boys, especially after seeing them at the Malvern show this year. Some of those were truly ginormous. But I think some of these actually probably would have competed quite well with some of the smaller in the category. So next year I'm going to see what seed I can get just so I can grow some giant Pacific squashes, because I think that may be my best bet. But if you know of any really good quality pumpkins to grow here in the UK for size, let me know in the comments. Now I'm hoping that these will stay okay in here for a little while at least. This one I haven't got high hopes for. I actually think it's been eaten from inside out. Has an awful lot of insect holes and it's probably crawling with them. But I'm pretty sure I can give this to the chickens. I may just have to take my axe though, because I think this might be a bit of a monster to try and cut through. I so wish though that I had some scales. I am dying to know the weight of this. It always amazes me how dense and heavy pumpkins actually are. And it's not just the pumpkins and the squashes that are good. This is fantastic greens for our bays. I have an awful lot of it to go into this compost bay. You can probably hear my chicken in the background. She knows I've got pumpkin. She's just waiting for me to give her some. So through the next day, I'll be filling this with all the greens that I've got left and then topping it up with the browns that I have from my chicken coop. And the good thing about this browns is it's got all that chicken poop in there going back into the soil. Now this really does work quite well for us, and I think the end bay that is pretty much ready now is going to be going into my polytunnel when I dress that again later on this year. The middle bay will be used to top all the no-dig beds, and I think this bed early next year will be used to create 1 or 2 no-dig beds. I have an area where I grow my corn that I really want to turn into no-dig. At the moment it's very heavy clay soil and it is infested with annual weeds that come back every single year. Now on my no-dig beds I don't get so much of that annual weeds unless it's something that is seeded and spread to other beds. So I'm hoping that that is not the case. So hopefully we should have, in theory, enough compost for next year at least. I still have one more bay at the top, but to be honest that could do with a really good turn and a lot more green added to it. I think it's a little bit brown heavy this year on that particular bay. And that's what you do find. Certain times of the year you have a lot more brown or have a lot more green. It's normally only a short space of time where you've got access to both. This year it was a bit slow with our grass clippings because of how wet and awful it's been. There's not been much grass cut this year compared to previous years at least. But we're getting there now. This middle bay was not long turned, and that will be left to rot in situ now. I only turn it once. I'm not going to be fussing about my compost. As soon as it's ready, it goes onto our no-dig beds. But like I said, I have a few changes coming up in the very near future. So that's it for now. I have got an awful lot to fill on this compost heap, and I have got an awful lot of tomato plants to try and sort and unclip these annoying green clips that my husband really does like to use. And they're everywhere, all over the plant. And I have to remember to take off all of these before I remove those tomatoes. So I'm going to get on with that, and I shall catch you in the next video.